sake. So have I fucked it? Is the whole thing fucked? Episode 10, Season 1 of FutureSounds FM. We're back from a mammoth trip to America. Well, most of us are anyway. And who'd have thought that we'd have made it not through only that, but also through a whole series of this podcast. We can call it a day there if you like, lads. No.
There'll be more.
Well, yeah, there'll be more. We'll be back after a very short break. No, anyway, it's myself, Enzo, as ever, joined by Patrick Fakeman, Thom Hoskin, aka Wichita Limewire, aka half of Donor Lens, aka 1/3 of Three Piece Sweets. I'm running out of what are the other ones?
Yeah, that's enough. There's more, but that's enough.
Yeah, and my brother Jay, who we rarely get involved for podcasts because he's a little bit shy sometimes, but we've managed to pull him out of retirement for this one. You've been waiting on the end of the phone for a call that the baby number 2's arrived, but not yet. So we've got you for now.
Not yet. If I dip out of the conversation, you'll know what's going on.
Well, it could be that, or it could be that just you've had enough. And we've got a special guest as well. One of my favorite mallsoft artists, one of my favorite vaporwave artists. He's an amazing guy. He helped us hugely, not only in New York from a production point of view, helping us to be efficient and organize interviews and, you know, hook up with the many artists that we had to do, but he also took us around some of the best places to eat and drink in LA, and he's just a great guy. Limo, it's great to have you with us, mate. How are you doing?
What's up, boys? Nice to talk to you guys. Nice to see you guys. It's been a while.
It's been a couple of weeks, mate.
Yeah, I already missed you guys. Shit.
Yeah, no, same. And you've been throwing a plastic disc around this morning over there, have you?
Yeah, man. Just got done with the round here in Huntington Beach. Now I'm just running the errands. Got work later. Chill day today.
Your life just sounds so much more glamorous. Like, I don't know, it's horribly grey here in the UK at the minute. And it was only a couple of weeks ago when we were with you in sunny Los Angeles, where the thermometers hit over 100 degrees every day that we were there. And I'd be surprised if it's 40 or 50 here. Like, I can't do the quick maths for the conversion from Celsius to Fahrenheit, but it's pretty cold here now, to be fair. We're heading into autumn.
You are down on the coast as well, aren't you? So that adds a little bit of shiver to your timbers. Yeah,
but he's down on the coast. Limo's on the coast.
Yeah.
It does the opposite.
Yeah, in Southern California, it's like 80 degrees. I don't know what that is in Celsius, but that's not a cloud in the sky today.
Just perfect. It's just perfect. I want to come over again. I just miss it already. It is what it is.
Not as crazy when you guys were. When you guys were here, it was like 100, 102. It's never like that. Just you guys brought the weather with you guys. It's weird.
Well, we were saying everyone was telling us about our heat wave in the UK because we had a crazy one for a few days, but that hit 100 plus in LA for well over a week. It was mad. It was if we didn't have a pool at the Airbnb, which we'll come back to the America trip later on in the pod, but if we didn't have that pool, I think I'd have just withered into a pile on the floor, a pile of useless nothingness. But that's a chat for another show. Limo, what we normally do is we throw people straight under the bus and ask them if they've got any tracks to recommend. What have you been listening to, mate?
Yeah, I mean, I've been listening to a lot of new music lately, just absorbing a lot of music, trying to get inspired. And I haven't really been listening to too much vaporwave. There's only been a couple newer vaporwave albums that have come out in the last few months that really listen to, but been looking for more artists that are kind of unknown and newer tracks to maybe work with later. And one of my buddies posted a new artist, not really new, but she just hasn't really had any shine, and her name is Liddy Baton, an artist from America. I don't know, I'm hearing she's in LA now, but she started in Austin, I believe, in Texas. And she's got a real weird sound. It's very similar if you've heard of 645 AR. It's got that squeaky kind of high-pitched sound, but she started in 2019, so it's prior to 645 AR, which is interesting. And she's really a combination of 645 AR and Beyonce, if you can feel that. And the track I really like is it's called Cyclone, and the beat on it is just so deep. It's just so heavy, and even the lyrics are really good. She just definitely deserves a lot more shine. You know, like I said, only 200 monthly listeners on Spotify. but is really pushing it now. So I definitely see some longevity in her career. Cool track to definitely listen to.
JPEG. JPEG.
Thanks for that share. Patrick, what have you been listening to, mate?
Quite a lot, actually. I've had a bit of time in between work, in between trips. We'll talk about it in a bit, but I think I'm still running on a Electronicon 3, not hangover, but I guess you could say exploration, and still can't quite figure out what I experienced, but ultimately knowing that it was a really good time. And one of them was inevitably the Death's Dynamic Shroud set that we watched sort of early in the evening. And in terms of for the pod, I was playing around, like, do I go with something classic? Do I go with something a little bit more recent? But then, of course, I realized that the guys' new album comes out, as we're recording this, is on the 22nd. Their new album comes out tomorrow. Mm-hmm. I think they're doing a premiere on their
They got
YouTube
a live stream tonight, so 11 p.m. Eastern, so 4 a.m. tomorrow morning for us.
While I'm getting my shut-eye.
Yeah, same. Because they've released a few of the tracks. This is where you pick a track I was going to pick. I had a feeling you were going to do this, so I had a backup just in case. But I think they've already had 3 or 4 of the tracks available to sort of pre-listen while the vinyl pre-orders were open.
Yeah, so given the fact that that new album is out tonight/tomorrow, I went with the opening track from the album, which is Judgement Bolt. Big, heavy tune, really great, really enjoyed it. I think certainly I'll be interested and looking forward to knowing what the rest of the album sounds like, because it's quite I'm looking at it now. It's a 15-track album that's coming. So, and I know those guys do some quite lengthy albums. So given the stuff that's come out so far, and some of it's quite different, I'll be interested to see what the rest of it looks like when we can hear it tomorrow. But yeah, my track for this pod is Judgement Bolt by DDS.
This
Yeah, that's a massive track. I mean, that was the one I was going to pick, to be fair, Martin. But
apologies.
No. I mean, I don't know if any of you guys saw Pitchfork have already done a review of the album today. So
yeah, quite favourable.
Yeah, 7.4 out of 10, which is a good review. It's a solid review, and they're playing the Pitchfork show in London in November. I think it's November, isn't it? The week that we've got
November the 10th, I believe. Is it
That's
10th?
right. That's right. And it is interesting, the review, the way Pitchfork see it is that they're breaking out beyond their vaporwave roots into kind of a maximalist pop direction. And I don't know what, Thom, you're more of a genre studier than I am. I don't know what you make of that. I mean, it's certainly...
They probably agree with it, I would have thought.
Yeah. And that's certainly the vibe we got when we spoke to George, was that if we spoke to them, one of the reasons that they may or may not, and it might be the reason they did or might be the reason they didn't want to be involved ultimately in the film, would be because they don't necessarily define themselves as vaporwave, in that sense. They're quite happy to be seen as and understood as that by people. If that's how you feel about it, then that's okay. But I don't think they ever really identify themselves now as vaporwave artists, which is quite interesting and perhaps shows the direction some of the bigger artists in the scene are heading, which is to try not to be pigeonholed. I don't know what you think.
They definitely have the same kind of sensibility, this kind of interest in sample digging, interest in internet culture and gaming culture. And, they've kind of served their apprenticeship, like making vaporwave proper, haven't they? And releasing on, proper vaporwave labels like Dream Catalogue and stuff. So I don't think they're having their cake and eating it by using vaporwave as a marketing term, or like allowing their fans to kind of do that. But calling them vaporwave isn't very. I don't know. It's almost false advertising, isn't it? If you say, "Oh, there's this great vaporwave act," and then you listen to their music, and it's like basically hyperpop prog rock.
I think if you liked it back in the day, you'd still like what we've heard of the new album so far, the stuff that's there to listen to. There's still as much in their sound, but I think you're right. If you were to say this is a vaporwave act and then people to go and search for other vaporwave, they might be surprised to find quite quickly how different all the different acts are. They're not a archetypal vaporwave sound that you'd hear replicated in many other artists. Maybe N-Rail does a little bit of that glitchy kind of sampling and stuff like that. Limo, are you a big fan of DDS? Have you listened to much of their stuff lately?
Yeah, I mean, definitely interested in how I'm more interested in their work process and the workflow and what that looks like in Ableton and what those files look like. I really just wonder what kind of tricks they've learned, because it's an amalgamation of three heads, and there's not really that many vaporwave artists that are duos or three pieces. There's really not many. It's usually one person and their ideas. To see how they flow through all those ideas and who's taking the reins on what, and just to see those files would be really, really interesting for me personally. I do love their stuff. I love Live in Japan. That's my favorite DDS album. It just has a little bit of everything, but yeah, they're definitely next level right now.
Yeah, for sure.
I want to see the arguments.
The creative differences. Well, the funny thing is, if you look at, you were the one, I think, Thom, you were the one who showed me the Venn diagram. And we've brought this up in the pod numerous times, the Venn diagram about who's involved in what albums. Like, there's only a couple where they're all involved, or maybe even just the one, perhaps, where they're all involved. Two.
Yeah.
But
I think this new one is number 2. Whether I think, or maybe I'm wrong. I'm not.
But also, as much as what Limo just said there about seeing the files, it's watching them live. And you were there beside us in the Electronicon show, David. And it's interesting to see how they bring that stuff to the real world.
It was really brilliant. I would say their set was one of the only sets that I saw the entire set.
Yes,
right.
There weren't many that I wanted to even walk away from. There was a couple, but that one and the Luxury Elite were probably the only two sets I saw the entirety of it, because I couldn't walk away. I just was missing. I'd miss something,
Yeah, it was hard. It was hard because you don't want to walk away from these things, but when you've got two conflicting artists that you want to see at the same time, it's like, how do you choose? I guess the only happy middle ground is to kind of see a bit the beginning of one and the end of the other, or that kind of thing. But it would definitely some hard choices to be made.
Let's come back to Electronicon a bit later on in the podcast then. Thom, you probably had more time than anyone else to listen to music, or am I misreading?
I've had a really long summer at home just with my boy. I've been on, this is not really paternity leave, I just haven't been working, but in terms of music stuff, I managed to find time to get the Wichita LimeWire album out, and happy with the response to that so far. People seem to be enjoying my silly record about MySpace and Mega Upload, so cool. I'm glad that's out in the open.
And that's gone down really well. And your tapes, the two versions of the tapes, one inspired by the MySpace side of things, and the other one with the classic Mega Upload cover. I think have I told you which one's more popular? It seems the MySpace one ever so slightly.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I like the Mega Upload one's really clean and minimal, and the MySpace one is just total visual overload, like a badly designed MySpace page, like a good page should be.
Well, we were talking about this because the tapes only came a couple of days ago and we got them packed up and shipped out. But Jay was saying to me about how it's actually amalgamation of several different eras of MySpace. Like it's not... like the sort of layout of the page wouldn't have actually existed in that form at any point. But the way Kira's pulled it together, shouts to Kira for that. It's amazing. Yeah. But it took me back to a time and a place.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, like what I'm trying to do with this project isn't like sort of bland kind of history or documentary work, like it's kind of it's like, that's what makes it Vaporwave. It's about capturing the spirit of an era, and it's kind of celebrates some things and critiques others, right? Like I'm never interested in nostalgia for the sake of it. Member Berry's nostalgia, that's never interested me. It's not just like listing things that we might have forgotten about. I'm more interested in kind of exploring that feeling of things that you've forgotten, but also kind of critiquing them, because I think it was actually a pretty naff, horrible time, really. Like there was some things about the culture then that were kind of gross, and a lot of the music, like the chart pop stuff, like Black Eyed Peas stuff, and all the stuff that was produced by what's he called, Dr. Luke, Kesha's producer, the kind of gross guy, like all that. Yeah. So much of that stuff is trash. Like the TV was trash. Like I'm not, it's not a period that I'm revisiting because I'm like totally fond of it. I'm kind of actually interested in kind of almost optimistically saying that there are elements of the present day which are better. Like I work with young people, and I think like despite the horrible climate, environmentally, horrible climate, just horrible climate in terms of the news cycle. Like I think actually, like culturally, it's quite a nice time to be a young person. I think that there's interesting music being made, and like I think it does seem like a nicer time to be a young person than the mid-noughties were in some ways.
I mean, the one thing that's interesting, and over time from running the two labels with my brother, I think I've started to think of Synthwave as being the one that kind of looks back nostalgically without putting any kind of critical thought into it. It feels like that's just an optimistic whitewashing of the past. Yeah. And Vaporwave is the one that does the critical analysis or offers some. It does sometimes. It's nostalgic in a positive sense, but quite often it feels like Vaporwave is willing to look back through the past darkly. If that makes sense.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I've always thought that, and but more recently I've been wondering whether that's quite like a blokey take on it, because we spoke to Luxury Elite on this very podcast, and we were like, like is your sort of brand of nostalgia kind of anti-consumerist, anti-capitalist, like blah blah blah, all these kind of highbrow questions. She was like, nah, it's just fun. Like I enjoy nostalgia. Like it's fun looking back on these times. It's fun revisiting it. It's good. I like things like that. It kind of forces me to check my more sort of academic or cerebral side. Music's fun.
Yeah. No, absolutely. So your pick.
Okay. Talking about fun vaporwave that like maybe is slightly kind of critical, but like it doesn't take itself too seriously. There's a great record that's out on Pacific Plaza. Shout out Pacific Plaza Records. The album is called Virtual Dreams, and the project's name is Virtualsoft Home. And Virtualsoft Home is actually a collaboration between Polyglot and Chiba City Blues. I think Chiba City is actually appearing under the name Corporate Realities. And this is one of those kind of like business, office space, Windows 95 style utopian virtual albums, like in the spirit of some really great early stuff like Farside Virtual and Vectroid's kind of Prism Corp stuff. This is really nice because it's executed in quite a slick way, unlike some of that earlier stuff, which is fantastic, but like a little bit janky, a little bit highbrow, a little bit sort of artsy-fartsy. This, I'm not sure that's the word. But yeah, this record's just a riot. It's like super clean. It's really evocative of these kind of bland corporate spaces and like the excitement of logging onto the family computer, loading in a CD-ROM and, doing some learning with your interactive encyclopedia or whatever, like, really captured the spirit at that time. So, the track I'm pitching is, called Code Cubes. It's track 3. I think this is done exclusively by Corporate Realities. Although, the stuff that Polyglot's done on his own and the stuff they did together also bangs. But yeah, Code Cubes. It's a really fun tune. Kind of dance beat comes in. Interesting take, like almost a vapor rave take on this kind of utopian virtual thing, which is pretty cool, pretty fresh.
As soon as you shared it, I was grabbed by the art, and it was when you said before we played the track, when you said about the Farside Virtual callback, and that is exactly that kind of early internet math book kind of vibe that you get from FM Skyline and people like that as well. And I really enjoyed it. I shout to Polyglot because he was at the first FutureSounds Live event, wasn't he?
Yeah, and I think he'll be at the next one as well.
I believe he is coming. Yeah. Really, really, really talented guys. It's a brilliant album, and it's well worth a listen. Again, as ever with all of these, it'll be linked in the description. Jay, how are you doing? What have you been listening to, mate?
I've been listening to quite a lot of different things. Not loads of vaporwave, not lots of synthwave. I've kind of been listening to quite a lot of metal and stuff like that again recently, trying to like just get back into some of the music I used to listen to when I was a bit younger. Anyway, so the track I'm going to play, I'm not going to say too much about it because I kind of feel like it's something you need to just listen to. It's quite hard to explain what it is, like genre-wise. It's got like bits of metal in it. It's got like some trap production. I don't know, like I don't really know how else to describe it. So the artist is called Kubrick. He's a UK artist. He's one guy who plays with a band, but I think he produces all the stuff himself. The track's called Painful.
Stuck in the mud, stuck in the moment, fighting myself, fighting emotion. I can't begin to hide the fact that I'm wrong. I just remind myself the truth is success. I keep throwing up fuel on the fire, so just take it out on me, baby. Just take it out on the ground. Ugly on the inside, rotten, dirty outside. I don't feel like I deserve to love myself. Nothing on the flip side. Something always telling me that I should quit, but I won't ever stop. Don't stop, don't stop. Don't stop, don't stop. Running amok now, biting myself, feeling the tension. I must believe that I am cool, calm, collected. I can't contain the pain. I need to release the flood. Ugly on the inside, rotten, dirty outside. I don't feel like I deserve to love myself. Nothing on the flip side. Something always telling me that I should quit, but I won't ever stop. Don't stop, don't stop. Don't stop, don't stop.
How did you come across the artist? That's the first I've heard the name and first I've heard the track, to be fair.
I went to college with Sam, who is the producer.
This guy.
Yeah, that's the guy there. He was in a band who I was briefly started with them when we were all in college, who were called Shields, who should check them out as well. They're absolutely fantastic. They've since split up, but and he started doing his own solo stuff. It's just all of it's great. Shields and Kubrick, you should listen to all of it. But yeah, Kubrick's just like it's like quite extreme metal mixed with like pop music, mixed with trap music, like mixed with all these different things kind of all just put together, and it's just I don't know, something that I've not heard ever before in my life, and it's sick. Go and listen to it.
Awesome.
I reckon listeners who are into stuff like Fire Tools will probably like this. It's like a pretty extreme fusion, right?
And Winter Quill, perhaps?
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Okay, with the track, because I was going to pick a DDS track, but I pulled out. But I feel like the track I'm going to pick allows me to give a little reveal, which will be interesting for people listening. We're pulling together a compilation at the moment for Nobody Here, which is working with some of the artists that we've interviewed during the making of the production. And the principle behind it, or the idea behind it, is to go back over some of the classic vaporwave tracks, look at the samples that they used, and put a new spin on those tracks. So one of the tracks that we've been listening to, well, one of the tracks we've had a remix done, if you want to call it a remix, a reimagination. Vanitas, who's a Belgian vaporwave producer who does a lot of art. He's doing some art for this compilation, in fairness, and he did the artwork for our Groot in België album. He did the art for the new Late Night Delight. He's a really talented visual artist, but he's also a really talented producer. And he's done a version of Summer Nights by ESPRIT, which he's calling Zomernacht, which is Flemish or Dutch for summer nights. So, I'm going to play the ESPRIT version because I don't want to give away too much about the project. But we've got quite a lot of tracks. We've been working with artists, including Cat System Corps put in a track. We've got a Mesh track. We've got a Donor Lens track. There's a 3-piece Sweets track. There's going to be a Limo track. We've got N-Rail working on something. Eve.exe. It's going to be a really, really interesting project. It's a labor of love the way it's come together, because it's quite hard to narrow down some of the classics and find people who can put a new spin on them, if that makes sense. You know, and a little spoiler, extra spoiler, there's a Lisa Frank 420 spin that's going to be on the album, which is going to be really cool. Completely different version, unlike the original entirely. It's going to be a lot of fun. So I think the compilation is going to be a lot of fun. And so this track, this is Summer Nights by ESPRIT. I've been listening to loads of Clanton stuff since I got back. I had the luck to be able to film literally on the stage while he was performing at Bay's show in LA, holding a VHS camera, grabbing some really cool footage, which will hopefully make it into the film. And I've always been really partial to his ESPRIT stuff, perhaps even more so than the solo stuff, although I've really dug back into that in the last week or so. But this is classic vaporwave at its finest. It's Summer Nights, it's ESPRIT. That was Summer Nights by ESPRIT, and that's an absolute classic. It kind of it might as well take us on to the filming trip, because not only did George put on Electronicon 3, which was amazing, he also played at the Bay show in LA. So we got a chance while we were in America, grabbing the bulk of the film interviews. We got a chance to sample the vaporwave scene in its live sense, IRL, on both the East Coast and West Coast. And it was quite interesting to see the crowds and the vast numbers that attended the shows on both sides. So I guess we might as well start with the New York aspect of the trip. And I mean, shall I run through some of the interviews that we did? Because I think people might be interested in that. So,
do.
I mean, I'll set the scene. We flew into we flew into JFK. We had our Airbnb in Brooklyn, which is where Electronicon was based. There was the tape swap the day before, but we obviously got there a few days early. You came along as well, Patrick. And the aim was, because there's all these artists flying across to that side of the States, to grab as many interviews as we can while we had the chance, because the budget's tight. People probably look at a headline figure of 50 grand and forget about the cost of producing the merch and the cost of shipping that's included and all of that. And so really on a tight, very shoestring budget, we're trying to produce a film that's far more ambitious than the money would really allow. But I think that people will be pleasantly surprised with how it comes out. Everyone we interviewed was quite blown away by the kind of production ethos, if that makes sense. You know, we did a real mixture of green screen interviews, but a lot of stuff where we found really good studio spaces, created worlds already, and there's going to be a lot of work that comes in post-production. But I mean, just to sample, I mean, we spoke to Equip, we spoke to FM Skyline, we spoke to John Zabeel, Business Casual, Whitewoods, Mesh, Dan Mason, Skeleton Lipstick, Vape Error. You know, that was just the interviews that we had set up in New York, but we also went to the tape swap and grabbed footage there and did a kind of roving reporter bit with Indy Advant, interviewing the guys from Pacific Plaza, I think, the guys from First Class Collective, Ronnie from Vaporspace ITL. You know, it was not a holiday. My missus definitely was going on a holiday.
Yeah, New York was insane. The amount of artists we were able to interview, that right there is like an all-star team. It's so crazy.
And that's just the start of it as well.
Those 4 or 5 days was a whirlwind, but that first day was a lot of busyness the whole day.
FM Skyline, bless him, Luke, he was rather wilting in the heat, just as I was asking the questions, to be fair.
Yeah, poor Petey. I mean, it was just hot. It was just so damn hot out there, and I think he gave some really good answers, some good insight into, real production of vaporwave that's not sampled. And Equip, I mean, his mind, you can just go all day with his mind. He's just so smart and so literally equipped with everything you need for the documentary. It's insane. No pun intended.
Indeed. And that wasn't even the most exciting part of that day, because at the end, I had to go back and tell the guy who ran the studio that we were running a little bit late. And my brother gave me directions to the office. So I walked down the corridor and I opened the door, and I don't even know if I can explain what I saw.
You can try, because this is hilarious.
Please do.
I was completely dumbfounded, but I knocked on the door. Bear in mind, this is like an industrial space with hundreds of little studios where people could be filming and just say they could be filming anything. So I tapped on the door, and the door opened, and I saw things I'll never forget. I think they might have. I can't. I just think they might.
So you have to explain it, because you explained it to me.
I haven't heard this. More detail, please.
I feel
there were 3 people. There was a gymnast, it
was a gym horse.
A gym horse. So that thing that if you watch the Olympics, you've got the solo guy or girl will be doing
pommel horse.
Pommel. That's it. Yeah. And so someone was ready on the horse, and then I walked in, and another person was absolutely ready. That's probably I'll keep it clean. They were absolutely ready. I'd never seen anyone more.
Yeah, Very professional.
And the director.
But what was the third? Okay, I was going to say, what was the third person doing? Two of them are ready. What was the other person getting ready? Or
the other person that was in the middle? I don't know how they were going to get involved, but
they were probably going to document the readiness.
No, because the person who opened the door was the director, and he was, bless him, he was very friendly and he smiled, and I think he might have thought I was an extra or someone that they'd to come along. So
it's like a Louis Theroux documentary.
I nearly got a role in another film that I hadn't intended, put it that way. Okay, I think everyone gets what we're talking about now. So yeah, and then we still had to go and spend the afternoon at the tape swap, which was amazing. But I don't know what you guys.
Tape swap was insane. It was so freaking hot in that tape swap. It was insane.
I appreciate you moving it forward for me.
I found it with some hindsight, because I'd arrived like yourself, Limo, the night before, completely jet lagged.
Yeah,
it was really intense in there. It was really hot, and I think that and some jet lag, I didn't really know what I was doing for about 3 hours. It was just there's people everywhere, and it was small. It was amazing, but I think with hindsight, I look back and think, wow, did I manage to even take it all in, because it was just so insane.
I don't think I ever left once in, because we got there. Shouts to Indy for organising it and the whole virtual
shout out Indy
team. I mean, that shows the health of the grassroots of the vaporwave scene right there. You had more than a dozen merch tables there with people from the whole scene selling tapes, vinyl, everything. David, you had a limo. You had a table yourself. We managed to get one in the end.
No, I just want to chime in on that. Huge shout out to Indy. That was such an undertaking, and he did it for free. He wasn't making money at all. I know that venue was very expensive.
Yeah.
And, I listened to their podcast, the Utopia podcast yesterday, and they just broke down the whole thing. And, they had to go the next day to paint the walls because people were scuffing out the walls. There's so much that he had to do. And then he, I'm sure we'll get to it, but, he loses his passport the next day. Just that guy had a full whirlwind, but like a thankless job really for that, to do that, and I very much appreciate him for booking me and getting me out to New York. It was a time of my life, and I'm very much thankful to Andy for that.
Well, yeah, I mean, you had not only the chance to connect with fans directly, because when you have an event like that, it's not just about going to see, passively engage with watching music that you like. It's the kind of community where the gap between the artists and the audience is almost level. Like, they tend to be the same. They're both fans and musicians or producers or whatever. And you got to connect with fans directly and sell them records, sign them. Personally. The fans, it was insane. I met people from all over the world that came out to that tape swap and came to meet me in a way, and people from Brazil, a couple people were from Chile, Belgium, a couple of other people from Germany. I would just ask everybody where they're from, all over the US, and incredible. It's so weird, sometimes, because it's such an internet genre, and I don't have Twitter. I don't have any of these social media outlets. Fairly private person, but when I see that this stuff is actually like a real thing and a reality, and not just like some tracks I make, it kind of blows my mind a little bit. It's very it's touching. It's really awesome. I mean, I felt the same about meeting you as well, because we obviously released a record, 2 records with you going back 18 months, maybe 2 years ago. It's a while back anyway, certainly when we first put the orders in. And then to meet you in person, and we were chatting about wrestling and all that, like going right back. I remember your album WrestleWave. You gave me that, like, I tell you what, guys, like anyone listening, Limo's attention to detail on the merch is unreal. I got like an air freshener with the WWF logo in the style of the WrestleWave album. You had like, go on, what else did you have? You had, didn't you have, like, you had condoms?
Limo condoms, acid blotter tabs, all about the merch wave, just very big fan of punk in the 80s and all those cool different types of merch. And it's a very much, vaporwave is a collector's genre. It's definitely, people like the little things, and the little things that are like tapes. The little things you can add to the tape is really what sets things apart. It's all about the time.
Yeah, no, it really is. And then this was to set the scene a little bit. This was a tiny, narrow venue that probably would healthily and happily fit about 150 people. There were more than double that, I think. Yeah. A tiny garden out the back. It was baking. There was sweat dripping down the walls. You had merch tables on either side of the interior. We were lucky to get a table in the garden. And then you had all these big name artists from the scene popping by. St. Pepsi was there. You had Lux popping around with her mask, and certain people she'd show on a message that said, "I'm Lux."
And she was and she didn't stop partying either. If she wasn't talking to someone, she was dancing. And
that was something else, was meeting Lux.
I think that goes to your example about how there's artists and fans, because she crosses that bridge completely, in the sense that she was, and even like when you saw her at Electronicon the following day.
Fast forward a day.
She was just partying the whole time, and it was. You're right. It was lovely to meet, and like you say, the way that she did it in the very the sense of just holding up her phone, saying, "Hi, I'm Lux. How are you?" You're like, "Shit, okay, hello." It was really special. I think it made that day. The day was crazy as it was. It was really insane. I think, and for anyone, as you say, anyone that was there in that very small little venue, that surely, if you're in the UK, I think the health and safety people would have had a conversation about how packed that.
There's like 1,000 people in that little building. It was like 1,000. It was insane. It was like the size of a bathroom.
Well, if you listen to their pods, like we'll link in that as well, because I listen to it, and Indy tends to go in like 3-hour pods, and you get the full sense of it. They really deep dive into it, but they were worried at all times that people were going to come along and shut them down. But like you get that sense, and I think anyone who's thinking in future about going to another one of these big events like Electronicon, or whether it's Flamingo Fest IRL next year, whatever, it's worth thinking about, not even just for the main show. I think for me, I almost enjoyed the tape swap as much as the main event, because you get that community vibe. I think it's amazing. And again, shouts to Indy and the team for putting that together. Is there anything else?
One more thing on that. I'm just so happy that we had the camera there for nobody here too, because that that thing, there's not many of those. We really don't have big gatherings like that, and to have that on camera, and just to have the camera there and to show people, hey, we're filming, this is happening, and look at what we're doing here. And a lot of people were very hype about that. Even now, I'm hearing people like, oh, so what's up with the movie? I saw it in in New York, and it's definitely crucial to have it there. What an awesome moment to capture on tape.
Exactly. And like I said, I ran through a bit of a list. I'll do the LA list and the bit in the middle when we came back that Chris did on his own as well. But all in all, we did more than, I think it was 28, 29 interviews. We filmed at the Tape Swap. We filmed at Electronicon. We filmed at the kind of pop-up event for Bae's show in LA. We filmed at the actual, what was it called? Groove Continental, is that right?
Yeah.
Yeah, the kind of more future-themed event in LA as well. I mean, there's plenty of footage, and we've definitely broken the back of filming. There's a lot of people we're going to grab off camera who kind of in the spirit of the anonymity of Vaporwave, preferring to do it that way, which I think will be interesting as well. We still got some stuff like that to do, but the film is being made. Like it, there's no need to worry anymore. I think people, like you said, David, I think people seeing the cameras there, they know it's actually happening. So, but yeah, Electronicon itself was kind of crazy because the queues were mad. They weren't as mad as the first one that we went to in New York, but they were crazy. And it was a hot day.
Once you got inside, there was another hour's queue of the merch table, of which there was like 6 or 7 different merch tables, but where people were trying to grab what was pretty much some quite limited limited tees.
Like that Knuckles t-shirt. That was what most people were trying to get.
I think that sold out in half
Knuckles
hour.
T-shirt. I was so happy I got that.
You've got one, haven't you, Enzo?
I got one. We both got
one as well.
I think we all got one. Yeah.
Yeah, I think.
Is it Comic Sans writing?
Yeah. It just says Electronicon ... on the back in Comic Sans and the picture.
Nice. The connoisseur's font choice.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Been there, bought the t-shirt.
But I think the first thing you noticed with Electronicon, and it wasn't surprising, that venue itself was the amount of different spaces. There was 2 or 3 different. There were 3 different stage areas. One that was outside. Plenty of room. It didn't feel crowded unless you were in one of the smaller rooms, like the Lux
Vaporwave stage.
That stage was crazy at times, but it was a really nicely laid out venue. I'd never been to anywhere like that before for an event of that scale. Could have done with a few more food trucks maybe, but
we'll come on to that. It felt like Woodstock 99 at one point.
I think
God, that bad.
I think that club stage which Lux was playing on is like that's the hottest I think I've ever been in my whole life.
They didn't open the windows either, probably because of the bleed, wasn't it? They didn't want sound bleeding out into the outdoor stage, but it was crazy, wasn't it, mate?
It was. I think I saw Jay. Well, I think me and you were quite close the whole time, weren't we, Jay? In that room, I think one time we just turned around, we're just getting out, and by then your t-shirts just
Yeah.
If
Yeah,
it's
like I wanted
so
to stay
tough.
for the whole thing as like a piece of history, but it's like, I think it just, for me personally, it got to a stage where I was just like, I literally cannot get any warmer or I'm going to like faint or something.
I think we got in there for Dan Mason
So
first,
good,
didn't we? Like a
Dan Mason
shouts
first,
to Dan
yeah.
Mason. That was incredible. I could only bear 10, 15 minutes of it because of the heat. And it was amazing.
Yeah.
I had to get out and get fresh air then, but that was incredible. And then Lux was either on straight after or not long
straight
after that. Lux was just, everything from the outfit, the way that she conveyed her anonymity to the visuals on screen, and then seeing, it was quite surreal seeing Chris getting his camera right up like on the side of the stage. Like it was like, for me, it was like I'm seeing this film being made in front of my very eyes. It was wicked. I tried to get some Polaroid shots in there, but it was just too dark, and every time I got a good shot, someone's hands up in the way. There's some charming Polaroid pictures that I brought back, but they're all a bit shambolic, to be honest with you. The experiment with that didn't work quite as well as I thought it would, but yeah, it was just, that whole stage was just insane. Tom, are you feeling a bit left out and jealous here?
That's all right. It's a vicarious experience, you know.
Was it streamed? I'm not even sure if it was streamed much.
Yeah, it was. There were a few of the performances were streamed on the Vapor Memory YouTube channel. Cool. So the DDS show definitely was. I think Phantom was. Some others, just in terms of like snippets and stuff, like so much was hitting social media. Yeah. So yeah, sure. I was there at home with my very, very young child. What date was this? Do you remember when the show was?
20th, maybe the 20th of September.
Yeah, so my kid was like two weeks old, so I was kind of in a haze. August, but I was getting bits and pieces. When me and Rob did the previous podcast, he was calling them videotapes. I think he was calling. I think that means clips that appeared on Twitter, videotapes.
Videotapes. I like that. Yeah, I like that a lot. Yeah, it was crazy because I kind of experienced Electronicon 2 in that way. Having been to the first one, I was so insanely jealous then of the second one happening, especially seeing people like Cat System Corp going over there, and like you kind of get serious envy then. I love New York, but like when that event was announced in LA, it was quite hard to see it happening and not be able to be there. But yeah, it was cool.
Yeah, LA was really good. I was actually at LA, and it's comparable to 3. Honestly, 2 might have been better. I'll be honest. I think there was more artists, vaporwave centric at 2 than 3.
And what do you make of because there was a whole big debate in the week leading up, and I'm not here to throw shade on it, because my take home from this was that there was something for everyone at that show, and I think I'm one of those who believes that a rising tide carries all boats, as it were.
Yeah,
I don't.
Happy clapping.
Yeah, the difference for me between Econ 2 and Econ 3 was just seeing Telepath live, and it was just packed, but it wasn't hot. And the audio, it was the same room that Cat System Corp had performed on maybe an hour prior. I was backstage when Luke was getting his costume on, and everybody was back there hanging out. DDS, I was with Eyeliner at the time. We're just watching this whole thing happen, and he went out there. Telepath, personally, as controversial as it is, he's one of my favorite artists, and to see him live, that was one of the main reasons I just wanted to go to Econ, and he just blew everyone away in that room. With like a live set, more of his newer stuff, like the Miranda fashion show stuff, which I personally love. I love that stuff. I love the Slush Wave stuff too, but the stuff he was doing live and just the lighting and everybody's crystals in the air, it was definitely missed out on Econ 3. Like that was kind of, when I saw he was going to do the opening ceremony, I was like, oh, it's going down. I'm definitely going to be there. But they kind of pulled the rug from us a little bit on that one, I'm not going to lie.
So you feel like it didn't have quite the same highlights? Like the event itself was amazing, but it didn't snap peak because you didn't. But yeah.
The artists, it's just the artists were more vaporwave centric. You had Eyeliner from New Zealand, you had Jorn from Netherlands, you had artists from all over the place. Frank Javcee was there. Everybody. It was harder to make those rooms than it was to make this Econ. I'll be honest, because I think it was 5 rooms at Econ 2. And it was at the Jules Cash one, which you guys saw.
Yeah.
And that place was just packed. It was just packed, but every single artist on that lineup was insane. It was just so good.
Yeah, and I guess that this is where the criticism came in the week leading up to the event, was people were arguing that it was less of a vaporwave festival and more of a vaporwave stage, and maybe the outdoor stage with a few artists that kind of transcend that. Which is, look, it's in his gift. There's the easiest thing to say back to people who criticise the lineup is, we'll put on your own show. Do you know what I mean? Because people can do that. It's in your power to organise a party and do that. But I take the point that you're making there. I mean,
it's in the name. Electronica, Electronicon. It's all encompassing. He kind of had some foresight with that name.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, that wasn't an accident, or if it was a happy accident for sure. I mean, for me, it was nice.
Yeah, it's not Vaporwave Con.
No. But you had Runners Club. You had, you still had Death Dynamic Shroud. We've already said is a kind of transcends the genre itself. But you had that whole club stage, which was full of vaporwave artists, and it would have been nice to.
You have like Christ. You have Christ was playing. Yeah, you have a lot of iconic artists.
Lux is. I think most people who left that just blown away by the fact, how is he going to top this? Like in the first event, he's managed to get Lux out. He's managed to get. In the first event, he got Telepath out. In the second one, he's had Eyeliner. Like, how is he possibly going to top that? Well, the only way is to get Lux out. And he was saying to us when we did the interview with him how hard it was. And it wasn't George himself, perhaps. It was others speaking to Lux that persuaded her to find a way to make it work. And I'm really glad. Like, I know that everyone who saw her and everyone who's a fan of hers who was there is just so grateful for her.
Personally, that was the number one set for me. It was Luxury Elite. Like, I got emotional like 3 times in that room. Like, literally, like, teary-eyed, like, wow, this is actually happening. Like, we're really witnessing history right now. And looking out in the crowd, I saw a lot of my, fellow vaporwave artist friends, and I saw like Trash Coast. He was out there tearing up a little bit. Perneco, a lot of other artists, and I was like, wow, this is. She came in with like a track from Noir, like halfway through the set, where I was like, damn, and like the whole crowd kind of had a wave of emotion. I saw everybody that knew that album and knew that track. And then like the visuals by All Hell Breaks Loose when he was using like that guy flying through New York. At that time, it was like, damn, like it all lined up so perfectly. And it was just, and we almost missed that set because I remember she played 20 minutes early.
Yeah, she started early, didn't she?
My friend posted the picture and I was like, let's go.
We just ran across.
Spot, but
I think I spoke to quite a few.
Man, I was behind Chris and it was
I spoke to a few people who were confused by the merch queue. They thought that the merch queue was the queue to get into Lux because of the way it arced around. But if you just wandered around, if you were just like, wandered up to the door, you managed to squeeze your way in. But it was insane. There wasn't any room for a single extra person in there, to be fair. And it was actually hard to get out when we left.
Well, because it was on 2 levels, wasn't it? It was on the
you had the step up,
and there was that guy just dragging us all up.
Literally just picked me up like I weighed nothing.
Yeah, just I was pulling everyone up.
I guess one thing about leaving a little bit nearer to the end was like, I feel like it's something that you had to see, and I guess by us leaving a little bit earlier kind of made room for more people to come in and see it, which I think
that's true.
Was because there was literally people just like standing outside of the doorway, even just like looking in from outside.
Who did we miss?
Wow.
Whoa.
That was
singing that note.
Do you need to reset your internet, David?
Sounded like the squeaky track.
Yeah.
I think you need to reset.
He's been vaporwaved.
What?
It's DDS, isn't it?
Yeah. David, I think you need to reset your internet, perhaps.
Talk about some of the sets. I want to know, did Death Dynamic Shroud play loud? Is it a loud experience?
It was pretty loud. The room was quite big, and if you imagine, it was kind of like a big long hall, and it was kind of like it was almost like cut in half. So if you were stood at the bar area, which was way at the back, maybe it wouldn't have been like really loud, but like if you were basically from the sound desk all the way up to the stage, it was loud. It was It's like it's like being.
It was like a T, wasn't it? It was like the stage and the
it kind of fanned out
that, and then it was long down and skinny, but that went back like 50 meters. 50.
It was loud.
Meters.
It was loud. It was like being a fucking any sort of EDM show.
Yeah.
You know, I mean.
And how like improv-y is it? Like, are they having like noisy kind of freak outs, or is it quite tight?
I mean, there is a lot of that. I think they kind of do similar stuff to what you do, Tom, with like a controller. So they have maybe I would love to see
Ableton tricks.
Yeah, I mean, I saw a picture from over their shoulders.
Yeah, the black and white one.
Yeah. I would love to see a video of them playing a bit of some of their music live, just so you can see what they're doing. Because it's quite hard to like. It's quite hard to see.
You just need to look at Chris's footage. Because Chris got stage behind them.
But I think they have like two laptops. They're both playing, I think, MIDI keyboards, and James was playing some guitar. They were both singing as well. It was just like it was so good. It was just so good. But I would love to like what David was saying earlier about how he'd love to know what the process is to making the songs. I'd love to know that as well, but I'd also love to know how they're performing live. That'd be like really interesting.
For sure.
I went from liking them to loving them after seeing them play that set in real life. It was incredible.
Really, I would say that was probably my favorite set. That or Lux was probably my favorite set, or Runners Club.
It was just mesmerizing. One of those. I found it really mesmerizing. Nothing stayed the same for more than 3 seconds. You know, it was the way that it was just the way it was layer upon layer. And then before you knew it, you'd been there for an hour. You're like, shit, okay, wow.
It was it was sad when it was finished. I mean, I felt mad because then we ran outside. I'm no longer able to remember whether this was before or after, but I can remember heading outside and there's Runners Club getting ready to play. And that's kind of surreal because they obviously got booked because they live streamed their FutureSounds show. And Chris, the manager of 100%, picked up on that stream and booked them to play Electronica, which is incredible. And we saw them live, and there's that kind of sense of someone that you've worked with as friends and you've helped to grow, and seeing them play a show that big was just insane. And they were great, and they're lovely people as well.
And they did that mix at the end, which was every single one of their tracks.
Yeah, Carl was like
4 minute space. It was crazy.
Carl was like, here's all the tracks we didn't play, and then they just played like
a mashup,
shitloads of tracks, all as a mashup, like all with like break beats and stuff like that.
Yeah, it was insane.
And we had the whole food queue debacle, and we managed to catch St. Pepsi. And for me, St. Pepsi is always a personal highlight. Like I absolutely fucking loved it. There was that moment. Did anyone else pick up on that moment? Chris is there on stage filming, and Ryan nearly pulls his laptop off the stage. Like,
did he?
Yeah, and Chris caught the laptop and pushed it back on. Song.
Gills, bruv.
One of my favorite sets, though, the George set was whatever, but the Christ set, I know Jay came with me for that.
Yeah,
but the Christ set was another level. Yeah. Just him, he's one of my buddies, you know, and just he really helped my career too. So his set was another level. That club room was a steam room at that point. It was just all fog. It was so hot.
Yeah, that was so fun. I'm glad that we got to see that. It was like it kind of went from one vibe straight into something completely different. Coming out of watching George do his set, going into a Christ set was like a slap to the face. Like it was a complete like switch up. It was sick. And I was like
it's like night and day.
Yeah.
It really was.
It was really awesome.
Yeah. I like the way George ended on stage with God on an LED screen, which is kind of like a fuck you to everyone who's.
Yes. See, we didn't see that bit. We didn't.
I didn't see that.
We didn't see God. We saw Christ instead.
Hey.
Wait, what do you mean? What do you mean? What do you mean he had God, like a God's face, or G-O-D?
No, you know,
God
behind him.
In those like, he had those like LED lights behind him.
I think it was a knowing joke. I think it was a knowing joke. But I mean, it played in because Chris was quite keen to try and get him to do his interview in like a church. Like, let's all worship at the
he wanted to do it like Kill Bill 2, didn't he? Like out in the desert. Like,
But like
that is a cool scene. In fact.
The funny thing is, when we did eventually interview George, He was like, "Yeah, well, I probably would have done that." So all of that worrying that we had about, I kept saying to him, well, me and you, Jay, kept saying to him, and David, in fairness, he's not going to like that. He's not going to want to play that up. I mean, it's one thing putting God on your stage, like in LED lights as a piss take, but actually like doing your interview for the film as you know,
do it at an altar,
the Reverend George.
Yeah. I think John Lennon came to regret making that comparison, didn't he?
What was it? The Beatles are bigger than Jesus.
Yeah.
Well,
that's the, my jumper I used to have, the Stamp Out the Beatles one. That's like a campaign, like George Harrison famously wore that sweatshirt after. I think it's like a religious campaign. They'd have like mass gatherings and they'd throw Beatles records on the fire. And they'd stamp out the Beatles because of that reference. Where he said the Beatles are bigger than Jesus or whatever it was, bigger than God.
Hysteria, mass hysteria.
So let's not incite crowds of people burning George Clanton copies of Slide in small town. I'm not going to go any further.
Why not? It'd be good for the film.
Yeah, it would be good for the film, actually.
Conceptually, I do like it. Yeah. All right. Yeah. Fuck that. It's a good idea. I'll take that back to Chris.
Future
Sounds. There's a whole load of shit we could.
I was going to say, do you guys want to chat about LA? Because it looked.
Let me throw in the middle, because we all come home for a few days, and I needed the rest and recuperation. I was proper ill. Jay, you had COVID. I think I had it the last few days I was in New York, so I was completely fucked. And then luckily I managed to get a negative test in time to come back to LA. But while we were at home, Chris went off and interviewed Digital Sex, Grafton Tanner. He met with Vito from DMTFL. He actually got Dan Mason to come over to that side of Florida as well. And I think it was quite sweet because it was the first time that Dan and Vito had met, and they'd obviously worked together going back years and years before. So I think he had kind of a nice time sort of spanning this massive country that you guys live in, while we were like back home running the label for a little while, which was really nice. But then we met up and he headed over to LA and David, did you go with him to the Data Girl and Nano Shine interview?
Yeah, I picked him up from that at the after that interview. I met up with them all, but it was pretty much picked him up and then we met up with you after that at the Airbnb.
That's right. And he was hanging out with Frank Javcee and Groovy Kaiju as well that day, I think.
Yeah.
So there's some cool photos from that.
He filmed Groovy that morning, I believe, and then he did Data Girl and
that's right. He did Groovy at a skate park, which I think is going to look cool. I think there was some worries about sound, but the footage is going to look great. I'd rolling back to New York for 2 seconds. I tried to jump on one of their skateboards because we ended up down by the river in Brooklyn in Williamsburg, and it was Groovy, Indy, and Pizza Slut, and they all had their boards. And my brother's really good at skateboarding, and I'm absolute shit, but I can remember being all right at it when I was a kid. And I jumped on a board for about 2 seconds. I nearly broke, like I fell off within 2 meters. It was awful.
I
heard about that.
We were all quite good at things when we were kids. We just don't fucking do them anymore.
No, I was trying for like fucking ages to land that board slider.
Jay, do you want to touch over the fact that you didn't make it? I mean, your baby's really close to being due, and all along that was a concern. Was that coming back to LA?
That was always the worry. But luckily, I've got a very, very supportive girlfriend, Kira, who was like, "No, you need to do this. It's really important. You've been working on this project for years. Like, you need to just go. It'll be fine." Baby's due date is on 26th of September, which is
Tuesday, is it?
Which is in 4 days' time from when we're recording this. So the whole thing was kind of like, I was pretty relaxed about going to New York, but LA was always a bit like, touch and go. And then when we got back from New York, we drove back. It was fucking ridiculous. Got like horrible jet lag, and then I had COVID. So this is the second time I had COVID. This time that shit absolutely fucking kicked my ass so badly. Like the first time I didn't even feel sick at all. This time I was like, I just couldn't like breathe. It was fucking awful. Anyway,
you had the super Electronicon variant.
Yeah. So like it came up to like a few days before, like, and then Kira's like basically had like what's the word, like early signs of labor. Yeah, so she basically had a false alarm, but she basically thought she was going to go to labour. So we made a decision that it would probably be best for me to not go, based on the fact that I wasn't 100% sure that I would, on the day be testing negative, which it turns out I actually did, because I did a test on the day. So I would have been fine to fly, but it was kind of just one of these things. And then, as these things always go, typically, baby's still not here. Here we are.
So let's talk about what you could have won.
Over a week. Yeah. Here's what you could have won.
Here's what you could have won. So
no, I was absolutely gutted. Like one of my favorite parts of the whole trip in New York was being able to meet up with some of these, some artists and some friends and some people he speak to online and don't necessarily get the chance to meet up with. And like I feel like we had such a good time in New York. That was one of the things that I was most gutted about not going to LA, was not being able to hang out with people again. But I it is what it is. These things happen, and you and Chris, with help from Limo and everyone else who helped whilst you were out there, and I couldn't be there. So thank you so much to everyone who kind of helped you too. But you guys absolutely smashed it, got everything done. So here we are.
Limo, obviously we've already thanked you. I can't really thank you enough. Like, you picked us up that day when I arrived. We met at the Airbnb, which had a pool. The weather was absolutely scorching. We had quite a lot of interviews to do that week, but also we had other people like Booty Wizard. We had Groovy Kaiju. We had Frank Javcee, all these people who were local based, who kind of took us to places to chill out in the evenings after we'd done interviews and helped us find locations and stuff. We had the pleasure of hanging around with St. Pepsi on the first full day that we were there, which was really cool. I managed to grab interviews with him. So who let me run through them. Who did we grab? We grabbed St. Pepsi. We went to the Vapor 95 in real life shop, which I recommend to anyone who's heading out to LA. If they're not open, if you drop him a line on Twitter, he's pretty cool at coming down and opening up the shop anyway. Obviously, we interviewed Limo, we interviewed George Clanton, we interviewed Yung Bae. We did an interview with Eric, who not only is one of the main moderators of the Vapor Vinyl subreddit, he also runs Sly Vinyl, which has started out as kind of a blog that reviewed Vaporwave and other adjacent music, but also is now a label in its own right that's done a few Haircuts for Men records. And yeah, LA's different gravy. It's massive. The food's amazing. It's really expensive though, mate. Why is it so expensive for milk there? David, you're probably best placed to answer this. Why is your...
How much is milk?
I can't tell you.
Hang on. How much is milk?
I'll put it in context for you. I got a small box of Cheerios and 2 liters of milk, and it cost $17, which at the current rate of almost 1 for 1 is about 16, 17 quid.
That's wild.
I'm working for half a day on the measly pennies that we pay ourselves.
I assume it wasn't the Cheerios that knocked it into the teens. It was the milk.
No, they're both it's about $8 or $9. I mean, maybe what was the place? What's that supermarket called? It's kind of adjacent to the.
Was it Cheerios, or was it like Whole Foods?
No,
Cheerios stuff cereals.
The thing is, it's a supermarket that's in like a hotel, like those are typically the convenient ones. Like that are typically they're gonna tax you, so that's kind of what happened.
It's a fair point. It is a fair point. But yeah, like LA was a trip. It really was. St. Pepsi, catching up with him because he got ill after doing his Electronicon show in New York, and I was worried because that was one that we really, really wanted to get in the bag. We managed to find a really good studio and sit down, and that guy's like, when you talk to these artists for the film who go back that far, you're just getting like the history right there. There's so many different tangents that you could go down, and I think the big challenge for us is going to be when we get all this footage at the end is trying to break it down into identifying a story and fitting all these voices into a 90-minute film.
You can do a director's cut though, right?
I mean, I think that there'll be a wealth of additional footage that we can use in other ways, like an extended version for sure. But like the challenge that's going to be, it's going to be real. It's going to be trying to pull this down to to just 90 minutes or under 2 hours, perhaps, so that it's a kind of a marketable length for people.
Yeah, you don't want some sort of Oliver Stone JFK 3.5 hour slogfest, do you? Because people just be done.
If you think about all of the things that people want us to talk about, so like the basics, like people are going to want us to run through the history, but they're also going to want us to talk about the tensions between sampling and not sampling, the kind of offshoots of things like future funk, how they've birthed out of it and what their relationship is. I mean, what's happening in the future, the jump from URL to IRL. There's so many angles that you can take with this film. The possibilities are kind of endless. But maybe we'll just do a happy clappy thing and we'll just say
maybe we should just release a series of trailers.
Yeah,
that's it. Just do trailers.
I don't think there's anything more vaporwave than that, a product that never arrives. How do you feel about being associated with that, Limo?
Yeah, I think I'm at the bow out.
Yeah, that's fair. Okay.
No.
I'll take the footage though. I'll take the footage Chris got, because he got some pretty good stuff.
Yeah, can we talk about your interview? Because we tried for ages to find a limo. We tried to hire a limo. This was just like a theme that just kept going for every day. So we'd be running through.
It was a great idea. It was a great idea. And yeah, I mean, just in the back of a limo, just doing the interview. It's better than the studio. But
yeah, it felt like we were running from one interview, then coming back and then looking for a limo again. And then we were trying like Craigslist and all these fucking different Facebook marketplace, people who are selling limousines. Like,
yeah,
I know you're selling your limo. Can we we had a few options. Like there were a couple of places that looked like they might come through. But in the end, we took you to, which I think is going to work out much better, is we took you to where the artwork for Omega More came from, which is Can you tell us about that?
Yeah, so the plan B, I always had this as a mindful idea potentially to use Pershing Square in Los Angeles, which is a train station. One of my buddies, Austin Yini, he does a lot of photography for architecture in LA, and he took the photo for Omega Mall X in LA one day and posted it on Instagram. And I saw that exact photo of Pershing Square, and it hit me, and I was like, I could make this look like a mall, and I hit him up about it. He's a big Vaporwave fan, collects my shit and stuff, and he's like, yeah, let's do it, and just give me a copy of the tape or the vinyl, whatever. And so we did it. I made the image, and what I liked about the whole idea was, it's a location where you can actually go to. There's not many vinyl records like that, but I always wanted to make an album where it's somewhere you can actually visit. And I figured for the film it'd be pretty rad to just take you guys to an actual vaporwave location, and it worked out pretty well. There's a nice little walkway up to the neon lights and the whole location, and when you get to it, you really see the full size of what the Omega Mall X album artwork is. And it is a train station. We had to do a few Photoshop things to make it not look like a train station, and add obviously the Omega Mall X sign. But I think it's going to be a very special thing for the movie because it's something different. It's not the green screen. It's not just somebody sitting in front talking about the career. It's more of like
you're literally
Vaporwave come to life.
Yeah, you're literally in the album cover doing the interview.
Right, yeah. It's somewhere you can go. Someone could still go visit. They can go visit for the film. Part of the film, they can go visit for that too. I think it kind of brought everything together, really.
Yeah, we need to set up a TripAdvisor page, like with the Midnight Store for like Vaporwave IRL tourist trappings.
Yeah, I would say still film the Midnight Store if you can. That would be so cool for the film, in my opinion.
Well, she used to be my landlady, so the woman who runs the shop, she used to be my landlady.
Oh, no way!
So it should be doable. But
it might even turn the fridge on for you.
Yeah.
Donor Lens and Limousine have got like the same pun about bizarre.
Oh yeah. It was weird. That was super weird, right? As well, because the album kind of came out as we were like, we literally had this idea of doing a bizarre like play on that word, like.
Yeah.
And then,
really?
Yeah. So we've got a song called Love Bizarre, but the whole thing was like Love Bizarre, Love.
Oh
Bizarre.
right, yeah. I remember seeing that. Yeah, I was like, oh wow, Bizarre is becoming a thing. Yeah, that was pretty cool. Leonidas did the artwork on that album, and he really killed that whole idea. But stores and vaporwave, they go hand in hand.
For sure. It was kind of crazy doing those gonzo interviews where you're trying to grab something in real life and there's kind of crazies hanging around and people just wandering by on their commute. Like, why is there cameras? What are people doing?
It was so sketchy right there. I was trying to hold it. I was trying to act like I wasn't phased to hold you guys and keep you guys like, there was a lot of needles around. There's a lot of knives around, a lot of like desperation around us at that time. If we were there at night, it would have been definitely would have been an issue.
Is there not like a permit issue for any of this as well?
Chris had a work visa, flashed it at the cops the day before, and they were like, "Yeah, that's fine." And then we just went and did it. We just went and did it and got out. We were in there for like no more than half an hour, 40 minutes.
I'm sure Chris would have got away with it. He's got the gift.
Yeah. But that was great. I mean, that was America through and through. It's so different when you're in another country. Like, fair play, we had the help of people like you, David, like locally. But like, it's just constantly trying to find like places to film. Not knowing anything about the local area, how loud it's going to be, overcoming all those issues that you'll have. But one of the highlights from LA was we had Booty Wizard come and do second camera roll at this. We booked an Airbnb. Well, we booked a house for a few hours with a swimming pool in this suburb, a really nice part of LA. And we had Bae come and sit on an.
Is that where you filmed Bae? Yeah.
Yeah, we had an inflatable pink flamingo to kind of mock the Skyscraper Anonymous album cover. And he was really cool. He's a really good guy, Yung Bae, Dallas. He's a really good guy. And his managers were... it's crazy speaking to vaporwave artists with like proper commercial mainstream or semi-mainstream management teams. People, they're talking about their like forthcoming tour, which they're on now, where they've got like just a tour bus going around the whole country. Like it's the whole vibe is crazy when you compare that back to people playing DJ sets to 200, 300 people. Like
he's got like, is he touring with Macross as well?
Well, we interviewed Macross in the end. We managed to get him while we were out there, which was a real absolute boost at the last minute. And we hung out with him backstage after the show on the Friday night, the big show. And those guys from Neon City are amazing. We're hoping to get out to Japan. So I think Davey from Neon City is moving to Tokyo early next year. So one of the benefits now of going to Tokyo is it's not just about getting stock footage and talking to some of the shops there, the bricks and mortar shops that stock vaporwave records, but also Neon City are going to be there. Vantage has moved there. So there's people. What's that? Who's sorry? Who? Bloodwave. Yeah, Bloodwave. Yeah, exactly. I wonder what you guys' take home is about the size of the scene. Like, is this a handful of artists that are blowing up huge, or is this a sign that the scene itself is in rude health? Like, what is your guys' take on this?
Tom,
maybe
you haven't spoken for a while.
Yeah.
Tom, what's your?
Well, it's a thorny issue. I mean, like, we're organising a show of our own, aren't we, in the UK, where there isn't the same concentration of artists. Our headline artist is coming from Europe. And the other artists on the bill are local acts. Like our event can't really compare or compete with Electronicon, but like it's not necessarily designed to. I think like one of the things, if I'm sort of playing devil's advocate and siding with some of kind of the more sort of conservative troll type figures in the scene, like one of the things that was interesting about vaporwave historically was that it was an internet-based genre and like lacked a geographic focus. Like you could be making this music from anywhere and you could be anyone. I think like for better or worse, like the nature of putting on a big live event means that it concentrates in huge capital cities or big cities, like New York and LA, neither of which is a capital city. Yeah, big city.
There isn't going to be an Econ Barry anytime soon.
I mean, but there could be. I mean, like Enzo, I liked what you said earlier, like about some of these people, like I'm always interested in what they have to say, but ultimately, I don't agree with them. And I think like what you said is like, if you want to do things differently, then make it happen. It's cool. Like a plurality of voices in a scene is healthy, right? We need discussion. We need, you can't just like allow somebody with like an incredible work ethic like George to put on a huge event and just kind of piss on his chips and kind of snipe from the sidelines.
No, exactly. Exactly. And when we spoke to him for the interview, like I put these questions to him because we're not just asking nice questions. Like I put some challenging questions to him about it to see what his take on that kind of stuff is. And, you know, this is a guy whose label is funding a lot of the Electronica stuff, you know, at the minute. Like he's putting a lot of hard work in. There's a lot of stress that's involved in putting on a show that big. There's a lot of pressure when you're the only person putting on events that big. But it's kind of going back to what you said about the geographical location of other scenes compared to an internet-based scene. Alex from Pacific Plaza said this. He said that he grew up like the DIY punk scene and stuff. If it's concentrated around a geographical area, then you have like the Cool Cats who are get booked as headliners, and then you have a clear delineation of who's the top dogs right the way down. Whereas when it's online and anyone and everyone's performing, there's a lot more kind of meritocracy or maybe just plurality.
In theory, but like cliques still emerge, right? You know,
it still happens.
And especially like now, like Twitter and social media plays a bigger part in it. Like people who are really good at social media can kind of rise to the top, or like people who I don't know. And there's all kinds of luck involved and stuff as well, isn't it? I like, you know, I don't know how much. Oh god,
what's happened there?
He's gone.
He's gone. But I mean, going back to that point, I mean, at the end of the day, like anyone could put on a show, but it's difficult. If you're based in London, for example, it's difficult for us to get more than a couple of American artists to come over for a show. Like, I think that there's potential for a Electronicon-sized event in the UK, but only if it's backed by someone like Pitchfork, for example, someone who pulls in masses of people from the mainstream who are curious to hear what Vaporwave is. Like, I don't doubt there'll be a lot of people at the Clanton and DDS show in November, but they won't be mainly Vaporwave fans. They may become Vaporwave fans. But the UK is not ready for a show as big as that. And I dare say most of the states in America aren't. No matter how, like, Limo, you'll be better placed to say this. You're based in LA, but people in Chicago, for example, might cry out for a festival. But there's only a couple of places in America that could host something that big, right?
I mean, Chicago is a good option.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's interesting because it's a traveling fan base, right? If you build it, they will come, kind of thing. But because there's not many of them. But what works with George is he's got this roster of artists he can just pick from. Yeah. You know, and not many other labels have this roster, this family that they can just kind of build upon.
People who are exclusively signed as well. They're exclusively signed.
Right. You know, you got me, kind of a drifter. You know, I consider myself my pet flamingo, business casual. You know, I'm not tied to one label, whereas some of these other labels, they're tied to it, but it's not. It's more of like a family thing, and they what they build is something that kind of, it's a good base to build more things, more events, more shows, stuff like that. I think Chicago's great. LA just works because there's so many people here. New York works because there's so many people there. They're just tourist destinations as well at the same time. You know, I had a good time in New York just being in New York. You know, that was it was a 2-in-1 almost for me.
So what's your take home?
It's the same for me.
What's your take homes, guys? I mean, like we've done okay for me. Just starting off with the filming point of view, obviously, because most of the big artists that we needed to interview are in America or were going to Electronicon or the Bay show. We've managed to get 80% of the filming done, which is a massive step. Throw in the other stuff we've done in the UK already and the European interviews we'll be doing. We'll be interviewing Jaunt, Cat System Corp before our show. We've got Van Porgum coming over in October as well. There's going to be a handful of things and maybe a trip to Japan. But from the film's point of view, we're close to breaking the back of the filming side of things. But what is your take home on the health of this? I know I kind of asked the question before, but I didn't really get a direct answer from anyone. Like you've seen huge events. Like, do you think that is it going to carry elsewhere? Like, is this going to carry on, or was this just one guy who's got the reach to do this?
I remember saying to you guys before I left, what stood out for me, and obviously I wasn't in LA, I was only at the New York side of things, was just how huge and inclusive and positive the whole event was. Now, you know, we've all been in genres similar to this where, it all gets a bit bitchy. People aren't enjoying themselves as much necessarily. I couldn't believe the extent to which there was inclusivity, there was acceptance, and a wide range of music of which everyone was enjoying what they were listening to.
And people.
Yeah.
And the people, it didn't matter who you met, and completely different backgrounds, everyone just being there for one reason only, which was just to enjoy themselves and just to be accepted into what they were doing. So if you were asking me for sort of a take home in terms of healthiness, I'd say it's there. I'd say the market is whatever you want it to be. There's definitely a market. If we're taking the UK, I'm sure there's a hidden number of people out there who would absolutely love to be able to have gone and experienced what we experienced. It's just being able to bring it to them, I think, because a lot of people, especially nowadays, they can't afford that element of travel and being able to, like Limo says, if you build it, they'll come. It's absolutely true, but I think you find that there are a few of us who are lucky enough to be able to do it, but others who certainly can't. I think it's healthy. I think it's good, but the main take home for me was I was bowled over at just how unbelievably positive the whole experience was.
You've not stopped saying this since you've been back. In fact,
I loved it. I absolutely loved it.
It was mad as well. It was mad as well. Like, continuing on from what you're saying, Martin, it was mad as well because it was like people were just so hungry for it, because it wasn't even just like you had the tape swap and you had the and then you had Econ. It's like you had two other events popping up, and there was people just going to every single thing, the community meetups, just everything, like, and just so people were just Tom's come back in. People were just like so hungry for this because like these kind of things just don't happen that often. Maybe once a year. Maybe obviously when the first Econ happened, it was twice in 1 year, but one was in New York, one was in LA. Not everyone would have been able to get there. It's interesting you're saying about the build it and they will come thing, David, because I think it's like, I think in the States that's definitely true, is that build it and they will come. Like, there will be people will come but I'm not sure that it's quite at that stage yet in Europe.
Which is ironic, given how close Europe is to everything and each other. Actually, in Amsterdam, it takes an hour.
I don't even think that, and maybe I'm speaking for Limo here, I don't even think it's just about building the main show. I think it's people like Indy, for example, putting on pre-events, and then they had events all weekend on the Sunday, like other organizers put on parties. It was basically became a weekend festival, and it just happened that the main venue was the venue for Electronicon, but they had shows and kind of pop-up tape swaps.
But that's such a good thing as well. But that's such a good thing as well, because it's like you have this big event, and then surrounding it, you have all these people traveling from different countries, from different parts of the States, from different parts of the world. They're all going to be in this place at once. Why would you not capitalize on everyone being there? And,
I'm going to look at this from a comparison from where we were at 2019 during Econ 2 to Econ 3 in 2022. Is that where we're in now?
Yeah.
That's the one.
So, I'll say Econ 2, we were at an all-time high as far as Vaporwave, in my opinion, and the hype. 2020 was such a interesting time. COVID was such an interesting time for the genre. I released 2 records in 2020. In my opinion, probably my most popular. And I still think, was it the time to release it? I still think back because there was such a weird time where people weren't able to go out or do any of that. And I'll be honest, I saw the genre dying during that COVID time. And I just saw tape sales across going down. Overall hype was kind of low. Not many big albums coming out. But the one thing that really started to save the genre was everyone doing these online shows.
Yeah.
All these online shows, and Vince, you and I discussed this a lot in LA. It gave all these smaller artists opportunities to learn how to do a live set, to do a real show, to make Vaporwave come to reality. And I'll tell you what, there's been so many great sets I've seen in the last 2 years through all these online shows that it's really building a lot of confidence in these smaller artists. And, the bigger artists, they're having a lot of shine. They're getting the Econ shine. They're getting, other ways of getting money through Spotify or their records or just whatever else. But these smaller artists that are learning to use their own music or to use other vaporwave artists' music and create incredible DJ sets, it's kind of more of an incline, in my opinion. It's hyping up. It's really on an upward trend with all these other artists learning to bring it out and come live once COVID is over. So now where we're at, and we're seeing, a lot of these artists were performing at this tape swap and the other shows that were happening around the tape swap. And, a lot of them are getting really good. And there's a lot of really interesting sounds coming, not just vaporwave. You heard a lot of different genres at that tape swap. Probably every genre.
Jungle, your drum and bass sets.
Jungle, trap, I heard some metal in some sets. There's so many other artists now that are learning to bring it to life and are bringing these sets to reality. Now, what I see happening, George put out a tweet that said, Electronicon 4 will never happen or something like that. That's probably a lie. But what it is it's kind of getting everybody else thinking. And I know Indy was talking about this with you guys. Like, let's work together. Let's band together. Let's get these labels together and build something through that. Because let's face it, no one's going to be able to do what Electronicon is doing right now, right out the gate. It's going to take an amalgamation of everybody across the globe to come to one place and do it together. And I truly think that we have some people within the scene that can really spearhead this kind of thing. And I think it's already happening. My Pet Flamingo, Utopia District, Business Casual, Geometric Lullaby. There's so many huge, great labels right now that can really come together and be like, hey, let's come up with the location. Let's get these artists going. And then it's going to snowball from there. So really, I started Vaporwave in 2015 as a long game. I saw a lot of parallels between punk music and Vaporwave. And that's why I got in really early, because I wanted to make sure in 20 years from now, I was in Vaporwave and it was a genre that was emerging. And so looking 5 to 10 years, I definitely think there will be big festivals that are going to be annually. Not just Vaporwave. I could see a Vaporwave / Future Funk festival happening annually. Maybe a traveling festival. Who knows what it could really be. I'm very excited. I'm excited about the future of the genre now. I wasn't too excited in 2020, but right now, after seeing how we bounced back from the COVID and how we're compared to other genres, I think there's something special happening.
Well, you're inspiring me. And it sounds like you're talking about Flamingo Fest IRL as well, because that's going to be one thing. And the idea about collaboration... Oh,
I'm going to be there. I'm there.
Well, you're going to be playing, mate. You're going to be playing. It's absolutely essential. Right. The collaboration aspect is essential. And it's not just My Pet Flamingo working with Utopia District. It's going to have to be pulling in other labels as well and making it, like putting the best minds, the hard work ethic of these people who, in many cases, manage to hold down full-time jobs and do this stuff. And it's a labor of love.
We all want the same thing.
We all want the same thing.
Everyone wants to build it. Everyone wants it to happen. And that's really what's so important.
Thom, you managed to jump back in.
Yeah.
What's your take? I mean, where we got to was like the take-homes from... Well, we were there, and you weren't necessarily... Obviously, you weren't there in person, but like... where the scene is at and where it's heading.
Yeah, I got a sense of scale, right? Like this event was big, really big. And it's kind of our job, like here in the UK or Europe, to kind of to try and up our game, I guess, like rise to their level.
I think that's fair. And I think our plan, certainly, we've only been putting on small shows for now. So the first show we did was 150. We're looking at a similar capacity for the second event, which is in November. Tickets are running out for that one. We'll link in the description. But we're aiming to get a bigger show on in March, where we think we've got confirmed big name from America coming over to play, which will be absolutely amazing. And then later in the summer, perhaps around the time that the film's coming to its end, we're able to do community screening with fans. I think that will be a nice thing for the film, and then cap that weekend off with Flamingo Fest IRL. That's the plan. Obviously, we're going to have to do a lot of planning and discussions with Indy and others about making that a reality, but that's currently the way things are heading for us, and I think that will be exciting. But, you know, again, finding a location where we can pull in good numbers. We're not going to get 4,000 or 5,000 people there like George or Yung Bae did, but if we can get a good big show where we can encompass the best of all of these various disparate subgenres of vaporwave, I think that will be an amazing thing. And it's about step by step entering into that kind of market of putting on big shows. And I think that, you know, the more the merrier. I encourage anyone and everyone to put on shows wherever they already are. Like people like Skeleton Lipstick have been putting on great shows for ages. I wish I could get out to one of them.
Even if it's just small ones as well. Even if it's just people that are doing stuff quietly. And
there's tons.
Yeah, it's a reason to get up and leave the house, which we can now do, by the way.
In Newcastle the other day in the UK, which
yeah.
If it didn't have a small kid at home, I would have been up there. But yeah, like wicked that things are happening. It looked amazing as well.
Did it?
Yeah, it looked amazing. I saw the footage online as well. David, appreciate your time. I guess we've held you in your van for a couple of hours while you've been waiting to head off and get on with your day. But can we just, before you go, have you got, what are you working on at the moment? Are you, have you got anything exciting in the pipelines?
Yeah, definitely. You know, the track for the compilation's done.
Ooh.
Yeah, it's a mallsoft track. I like I told you before, I have a couple hundred tracks already just done in the vault, and I luckily had a couple remixes already done a little bit. So I just kind of had to sharpen them up, throw them in the mall, and you should be getting an email this weekend about something. So we'll see if you like it, see where we go from there.
I love that. Throw them in the mall. I love that.
Yeah.
Is
that an effects chain? Is it?
Yeah,
that's what I do. Yeah, I already have the mall presets already, and I just throw in, see what sounds good in the mall. What doesn't sound good, we'll go from there. Really, so that should be fun. And then, you know, I've talked to you guys about it a little bit. I already have 2 albums completely done, sitting on, but I just right now with the vinyl delays across everywhere, I've just been kind of waiting on it. I was planning on releasing something in 2022, but I just kind of, there's no rush really. So have a couple done. I'm working on a third. One of them is a mallsoft album that's complete. Second one's like a desert themed, a little bit of like a national park desert themed album.
Nice.
A little something different, but it's very cool. And then the third one is also another mallsoft album that it's in the works. We'll see where that goes. But you know, we'll see what happens with that. I know we talked a little bit about the mallsoft album, so I'll definitely be sending you something with the track as well. So awesome. I know Jay saw a little bit of a preview of some artwork in New York. So we'll see. I mean, you know, there's a lot of it's interesting for me, you know, where I want to go with next releases. And I worked with some great labels already, and I like to just work with as many labels as possible and just, you know, spread myself as far as I can. But you know, I've definitely had a lot of fun working with you guys as well in the past. So you guys are like family at this point. So
definitely,
you know, it's always nice to work with someone you trust. So that's awesome. Exactly. I'm very excited for the compilation album and to hear all the artists and see what they come up with.
I'll share some of the stuff with you. It'd be cool.
The artwork is stunning as well.
The artwork looks good. Yeah.
Ooh, I want to see that. Yeah, I want to see that.
So yeah, that's where we're at. I guess we'll see you probably for Flamingo Fest IRL next year if we don't see you before.
I gotta get out there. I was
going to say you need to come over, man.
Well, yeah, if you're more than welcome to come over, we'll put a show together, and we'll have to have you play. It'd be great.
Let me know
what the set of the tape swap was unreal.
Yeah, let me know what shows you got coming up. I'll bring a mallsoft set this time.
Sweet.
Change it up, put me like an opening set or something to open it up a little bit. But yeah, let me know what you got coming out. I definitely want to get out to the UK.
And for everyone who's listening, thank you for sitting through. This was episode 10 of series 1. We're going to wrap this series up with this episode, and we'll be back in a few weeks with the start of the next series. Just a little reminder for people who weren't already aware, October the 7th, which is Bandcamp Friday, sees the release of Winner's Circle. We've got a special Club Flamingo edition, which is got alternative artwork inspired by the Hard Day's Night cover by the Beatles, and as well as a couple of standard variants for that as well. And we've got so much more exciting stuff to come. The vinyl pipelines do seem to have cleared a little bit. We've just taken delivery of a ridiculous number of records. Something like 3,000 or 4,000 slabs of wax have arrived in our lab, which is almost so full that you can barely get in and out of it now. So
damn.
We'll press them. Hopefully
it's a lot of frisbees.
It's a lot of frisbees.
It's good to hear.
Yeah.
It's a lot of plastic. Yeah, a lot of licorice.
Cool.
Should we also mention 12th of November, London, yes. Cat System Corp, Future Sounds.
Hell yeah.
Do you know what? I booked the Airbnb for Cat System Corp, and he's coming along with someone else who may well turn out to be a special guest on the show. Who knows?
What?
Yeah. But I'll say no more about that for now. But we booked the Airbnb, the flights are booked. The show is on the 12th of November, features Cat System Corp's UK live debut. We've got sets from Eve.exe, Pizza Hotline, Donor Lens, Iverson. Am I missing anyone? Special guest?
Yeah, me and
you are doing something.
You and Patrick Fakeman.
And we might even throw out some Vaporwave 3-piece suite style back to back to finish off the night.
Finish off the evening.
Yeah, it could be fun.
Future-sounds.co.uk. Tickets.
Yeah, we'll link for tickets as well. There's not many left, to be fair. It's quite a tight capacity because there's a lot of events on in November, so we just went for something modest.
Cozy.
Packed, cozy. It was where we were going to put the first show on originally, but we ended up going to the Post Bar in Tottenham. But this is a slightly more favourable location, Hoxton, for people in London. I think it's a lovely little place. We filmed your interview and we filmed the interview with Allo City Records.
That's right.
So
there's great pizza next door, and I think we need to do Tom's thing where we'll try and get a special Future Sounds pizza for the evening.
I think it's going to be a Pizza Hotline pizza.
Ooh. Yeah.
Call the Pizza Hotline. There we are. We'll see you on the other side.